Good afternoon. It is 2 p.m. The meeting will come to order. First, we have roll call. I have all of our trustees, with the exception of Trustee Robinson. We have our treasurer, director is here, chief admin officer is here. Council is expected to be here, I believe, this afternoon. I don't know what time, but be here. We have our communications and marketing manager, and we have a quorum. So, everyone, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up on the agenda is public comment. Speakers will state their name and community and speak for no more than 3 minutes. Persons addressing the board are expected to observe a level of civility and decorum appropriate for a public meeting. No personal attacks or disruptions from the audience will be tolerated. We have 4 persons signed up for today. First on the list is Jean Richardson. Megan, you running a timer or? Okay, just see it.
Hi, my name is Jean Richardson. I live in Hayden. My comment is in regards to your proposed resolution that I read in the packet. The memorandum was filled with statistics, so let's talk about what those numbers actually require of the public library. Your claim that only 17.8% of U.S. families live in so-called traditional nuclear families. You offer no citation, but let's accept that number for a moment. If that's true, then the obvious question is, what about the other 82.2%? Shouldn't the community library network provide books and resources that reflect the vast majority of families who do not fit your narrow definition? Shouldn't our children's and young adult collections include stories that honestly depict the many kinds of families that actually exist in our community? You may say those families do not reflect your understanding of community values, but the reality is that the community itself has moved beyond that restrictive definition. A public library's responsibility is to serve the real community, not an idealized version of it. And if we're going to rely on data, let's use real cited data. According to the Gallup poll, 9.3% of U.S. adults identify as LGBTQ+, and more than 20% of Generation Z does as well. Those are our neighbors, our children, our students, and our families. If the library is truly meant to reflect the community, then those lives and experiences must also be visible on its shelves. And since we're talking about representation, let's look at your own elections. Trustees Plath and Hamley, you won with 53% of the vote. That means that 47% of voters did not support your position. Trustee Bowman, you won with 57%, meaning 43% did not support yours. That is nearly half of this community. So my question is simple. How will you ensure that those community members, their families, and their values are also reflected in the community library network? Because a public library does not belong to the 53%. It belongs to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Second person. Thank you. Second person up for today's speaker is Teresa Burkett.
Hi, Teresa Burkett, Post Falls. As I read this memorandum on so-called traditional families, 2 phrases left off the page. Traditional families designed by God
and the truth of the laws of nature and nature's God. Those are not neutral policy statements. They are religious declarations. So let me add the governing principle that actually binds this board. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. While you are not Congress, you are absolutely a government body. And the First Amendment applies to every action you take. When this board adopts language declaring that families are designed by God, it is doing two things. First, it assumes the existence of God as an official basis for public policy. Second, it endorses one specific interpretation of God and family life as the correct one for our public institutions. It really would be nice if people paid attention.
Michelle.
That is not governance. That is religious favoritism. Community Library Network belongs to everyone in this district. Christians, Jews, Muslims, atheists, agnostics, and families whose lives do not fit someone else's theological definition of traditional. Your job is to govern a public institution, not impose religious doctrine. A public library board has no constitutional authority to elevate one faith-based worldview above all others through official memorandum. Doing so sends a message to every person outside that belief system that they are less welcome, less valued, and less represented by their own public library. That is exactly what the Establishment Clause was written to prevent. This language is not only exclusionary, it is constitutionally indefensible, and it should be removed.
Thank you. The third speaker is Michelle Lippert.
Hi, good afternoon. Michelle Lippert, Post Falls. I read your traditional family memorandum with great interest. Having grown up in a so-called traditional family in the 1960s, I could not help but notice the repeated, almost nostalgic references to that era and its supposed strengths. It was indeed a remarkable time for women, but perhaps not for the reasons this memorandum suggests. In that traditional America, women could not obtain a credit card without the signature of a husband or a father. Even in the early 1970s, my own father had to co-sign for my first credit card. In many states, women were barred from serving on juries, supposedly to shield us from the unpleasant details of crimes like rape. We could be victims, of course, but apparently hearing the facts in court was considered too much for our delicate sensibilities. Women often lack reliable access to birth control, yet we could still be fired for becoming pregnant. And there was no maternity leave to protect our jobs. A woman could be denied of employment simply because she was a woman. Entire professions were effectively closed to us. We were told women could not be astronauts. Think about that one. Lawyers, leaders, or decision makers. History and women themselves have thoroughly disproved that lie. Even daily rules reinforced inequality. When I was in school, girls were not allowed to wear pants. And I grew up in Spokane Valley, it was cold. In sports, my basketball team practiced only after the boys finished. And instead of real league competition, girls were given play days, informal games that reflected just how little our opportunities mattered. So yes, I remember the 1960s very well. For many women, what some would call traditional values meant legal dependence, limited opportunities, and institutionalized inequality. It meant fewer rights over our finances, our bodies, our careers, and even our civic participation. Nostalgia is easy when one forgets who paid the price. Before we romanticize the return to traditional families, we should be honest about what tradition meant for millions of women. Fewer rights, fewer choices, and less freedom for half the population. That is not a past we should glorify, and it's certainly not a future we should legislate through policy, public institution, or library governance. A public institution should reflect the freedoms that we have fought to expand, not the inequalities we tried so hard to leave behind.
Thank you. The final speaker we have signed up is Deborah Rose.
Welcome. I'm from Athol, or this area. Your traditional family values resolution is rooted in bigotry, based in naivety, and lacks wisdom and discernment. While it quotes biased statistics, it lacks definition and substance. It gives a wrong impression. This resolution comes across as merely another attempt by this board to erase, insult, and misrepresent the value to society and their successes of individuals whose worth doesn't fit into your acceptable notion of normalcy. Having worked as a counselor for male juvenile felons transitioning back into society, I could share numerous stories that contradict the limited notions referenced in this resolution. Numerous children suffer all kinds of levels of abuse and neglect living in what is defined as traditional family environments. I will add, trying to elevate a certain class of values or people over others, as this resolution does, is anti-American. It goes against the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and it is in direct opposition to the message of Christ and his direction for humankind. In conclusion, being seated on this board does not give you free rein to erase, insult, or harm other people. I encourage you to live by the Christian values you profess and reject this bigoted resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes the public comment portion of today's meeting. Now move on to the consent agenda, item number 5 on today's agenda. I did not find anything on here for corrections wise or adding or subtracting. I think everyone should have had an opportunity to review the minutes. I'll give you a few moments if you need to. Anyone have any changes or discussion? Hearing none, and without objection, the minutes are hereby accepted. Okay, we now move on to agenda item number 6, the Community Library Network March 2026 financial statements. I can kick off with one small question. We have, working off the the budget versus actuals sheet, line item number, or I should call it, call the line item number, anyway, number 635, which is telecom expense codes, I think they were called. Is that correct?
GL, yeah.
GL code, okay, I'm getting close, okay. I'll put the label on it. Yeah, telecom, just kind of curious, we've only spent 6%. And out of a large number, I mean, we allotted for $80,000 for this fiscal year. Is there just one giant bill coming in we're waiting for, or is there something? Just need to understand what that one's for going on.
So that refers to the fat beam, and so we received the, so fat beam is 70% federal, and then there's the remainder is state. So I think that was the state portion. Yeah. So that's what that refers to.
All right, wasn't sure. I certainly remember that fat beam contract. Thank you. I only have one other question. I'll jump down to the audit when it's GL code. Thank you. 800. The audit. I know we had an audit, and there was an audit report given. Are we just waiting for billing? We allotted $15,000 we basically spent $500 so far, so I'm just kind of curious. Is there another secret audit going on that we don't know about, but, just wanted to see where we are on that one.
Yeah, so the 25 audit is still what needs to come down that line. We paid for the one previously in the previous fiscal year, so the
Okay,
25 audit is still to be done. We're working on.
okay, so, oh, sorry, we got the report out from the previous year.
That's right,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, so
Yeah.
what,
That previous one that you experienced
yeah,
is the one that's gonna be here.
understood. Okay. My evening observations beforehand, so, trustee class.
The backup on revenues, line 430, URD. I saw in the description all along, I've been going by the URD down Post Falls. But in 430, received kootenai payment from Spirit Lake URD again. I have never heard of the Spirit Lake URD that we were getting paid for. And I guess I'd like an explanation of what that is and what is going on, and is that a mistake?
So there is a different URD. It is a Spirit Lake one. I don't have that documentation in front of me, but I can get it ready for next time. So it is not related to the other one. It's a Spirit Lake URD that we're starting to obtain funds from. I know it's like it's a packet of information. I don't have it with me, but yes.
I know nothing about it, and I think we should know about it, what it is and what, and how much is coming and when did it end? And is this something from before I was a trustee that's still coming in, or what's going on?
The CAO probably has more on the top of her head than I do. I rely upon the actual documents in front of me. So if it's okay, she can speak to it.
With no objection, please proceed.
The blue and purple sheets are reflective of what we are receiving from both Shoshone and Kootenai County. And so as that report comes in, which is live, so Shoshone mails it to us, Kootenai County is on the website. So we did receive a Spirit Lake. It could be from previous years. I don't have that one right in front of me, so I plugged these in a few weeks ago when they came in. So as that comes in, I'm reporting them actually on this sheet so you can see the monthly breakouts. You'll notice on some of the lines, for instance, on the blue and purple sheet where we'll talk about property tax relief or homeowners tax relief, deferred tax or decollection. Those sometimes change in those reports. A new one that we haven't seen will show up. And as those come in, I'm adding those in on the line so you can see actually what they are describing in that. So the backup to that is previous months, we've shared that link with you on the analysis. If you'd like, I could send you those links again. If you'd like to see the actual backup to it, it would be a lot of pages and we would just have to print it out and get you that information. But this is just the breakdown of it.
So we don't have an idea how much that particular one that we.
Yes, it says right here, $17, I think. Let me just look.
Tell me now, but do you know how much more is expected?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. We don't know until it's reported to us and it's in arrears. So when we get that, we report it. We also don't know if there's going to be a rebate, if more money's coming in. It's depending on the county and what they receive and then what they allocate to us.
Okay, like Christmas just keeps flowing in.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Sometimes like last month, they take it back.
Okay,
So the sheet just says URD collection rebate.
Yeah.
It doesn't say anything about Spirit Lake.
yeah,
I have never seen anything about Spirit Lake URD except for this little note, your notes, explanations. I don't know in the past months when this has been here, it doesn't say Spirit Lake. So I request, maybe with consent of the board, that next month we get some kind of report on what the Spirit Lake URD is. This one in Post Falls was a pretty big deal and it caught us after we approved the budget. I I don't know why we can't know something. When did it close? What was it? Anyway, a summary of it and how much money was left.
So if I may, the Spirit Lake has come multiple times. Actually, this isn't the first time. It's the first time I just stated it on here. Yeah, so it can be, I can show you whatever you need to see. I'm happy to do so.
I would like to know the details of the Spirit Lake URD. Where was the district? What was it for? When did it close? I know it would have gone for 20 years probably, but when did it close? That's the big thing. And how much money? I mean, if it closed 5 years ago and this is just residual, that was before my time, but I don't know if this is just the beginning of something. So this is not sufficient for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. I would like more information or just to tell, should we expect some windfall coming in or is this some little trickle left over that dribbling in from some earlier year? I don't know. As long as we have 3 people concurring, would we like to know more about the Spirit Lake? URD? I guess that's a yes. Anybody else? Trustee Fox?
My other questions are on the missing sheet, the balance sheet. So this is called budget versus actuals, actually the income statement. And I was expecting to see a balance sheet. And I got from the email from the
Administrative
chief administrative officer that we're not doing that. It's not going to be regular, and I highly object because our job as trustees is to evaluate the financial situation of the CLN district. And any financial statements, whether they're annual report from the stock or company you own stock in or whatever, always includes balance sheet and income statement. Those two are the basic. Income is snapshot over a period of time. For our case, it's a month of all the expenses and all the income, what is going on. But the balance sheet is a picture of our financial situation at a point in time, which would be the end of the previous month. And we need to see that. It doesn't say it in the duties of the trustees, but it makes it pretty clear from the state, the trustees are responsible for the financial situation. So I don't think you have the freedom to just decide not to give it to us. I've got a little sheet that summarizes what they are, but the balance sheet is what I'm looking at. What is our current funds? What's our fund? How much money do we have to make it to the rest of the year? How much are, and all these different accounts. That's what the balance sheet is. And if you don't give it to us, we are getting a view of this. And maybe your email hinted at that it's confusing because a couple of things are hard to understand, but the answer is fix it, address the questions, in particular the current assets, address it and fix it so that it is sensible, and don't just not give it to us because it's hard to understand. And I guess I don't really understand the thinking of it, but I don't know that I need to have consent. It's just it's our duties as trustees to be able to see the income statement balance sheet. Here's pass this down there. This sheet summarize what the two are and why we need to see it. So we don't have it here with us, but I would like it provided after the meeting or something so we can see it.
Sorry, Director.
Yeah, so this has been a conversation we've had since I've been here. And so I'm not gonna speak to the specifics of finances right now, but for me, one of my goals as the director is to put into the positions within the organization, very highly qualified, people to execute those duties. So I have complete confidence and fully support the CAO in her assessment of how things should be done, right? So having said that, it is the will of all members of the CLN to, serve the board. I do think if all members of the board would like something, we'll definitely consider the best way to satisfy that. So that kind of speaks to two things. Just for clarity's sake, a lack of understanding something doesn't necessarily mean that the thing needs correction. So I think if I understand the CAO correctly, there isn't anything incorrect that needs correction. And that doesn't necessarily speak to a lack of understanding. So I just want to make sure we don't conflate those two things where a lack of understanding equals a need for correcting something on a given piece of paper. So I just like to keep things very clear and delineated so we can make decisions. But bottom line is, I think, and I said this last time, and I think the idea was that this would be its own agenda item. But having spoken with my CAO and my finance specialist, both very qualified, and they're in the position for a reason, we talked about it and we decided on this approach where we would send out these emails to help explain things. Because I don't think this is the best forum for this particular conversation about how to move forward with the documents you're going to get on a monthly basis. So I would definitely encourage that the board and again, the emails I know just went out yesterday, something like that. So I think let's sit on it and we need to give the board a chance to digest it a little bit. And then have the individual meetings that we've offered in the message to sit down and talk about it. Now, if we don't want to pursue that, the board can unanimously vote in favor of asking for something, that's fine. Normally, the CLN isn't going to do the will of one member of the board. That's not how it works, so that's fine. But we would definitely do the will of the whole board. So, but I do think that it's this is not a new thing. We've been talking about this for over a year. The latest thing that the CLN has offered to the board are these very well constructed emails, which are helping to create understanding. I'd like to build off of that and see whether we can't have, one-on-one meetings. I know that, each of you will at points ask to see me and then you come see me at a certain time. We sit down and talk about things. That helps me. So I think we want to return that favor. I have an opportunity for any of you to come and sit down with the CAO and myself, or just the CAO finance team, and talk it through before we, settle in on what the monthly statement, monthly documents need to be.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm curious. I don't know if it's in this email or another one. I know generally we talk about commercial world does, I guess, generally accepted accounting principles. I think it says standards or practices. There was one that was referred to either in this email or I think it was government practices. So is that, so it's not a normal for government organizations to get a monthly breakdown of a balance sheet? Is that what it's coming with? Is that what I believe that's what I understood to say.
Again, I am at the will of the board. If we want to discuss this now, we certainly can.
I'd be happy to do one-on-one.
One-on-ones would be great. I would definitely suggest that would be the best way, but to answer the question as best as I can, I want my CAO to follow the public government, guidelines as opposed, and I think from what I've gathered so far, even calling it a balance sheet versus the statement of that position, or what the budget and actuals versus something else, we're actually trying to comply. We're not trying to, we are complying with the GASB, GASB,
Yeah.
right? Librarians love acronyms, usually our own acronyms in our profession, but yeah, so GASB, that's I am 100% confident that my CAO and my finance specialist are following GASB. That's what they've been put in the position for to correct things, from the past that might not have been done properly. And so we've been doing that. We all know this. So again, I think this is great, and we definitely want to bring this to a close. But I think the best way to bring it to a close would be the opportunity for the board to really digest the latest information presented to them by the CAO, and then have individual meetings, small meetings that obviously don't violate open meeting laws, and then we can arrive at what the board would really like to see as far as moving forward. I mean, we're about to enter the budget cycle, so this is a great time to establish what it is you really need to get this job done.
Okay, thank you. And certainly it is easy to understand the difference between, I mean, the statements about budget versus actual. That's pretty easy for me to process there. The other trustee plus.
Well, I cannot honestly vote on approving the financial statement if I don't see the balance sheet. You want to call it a net position or something, but for generations, these two sheets are income statement and balance sheet, are the standard for how you judge the position of a financial position. I will not vote to approve. In fact, I'll vote not to approve this without a balance sheet. And what I read in the email, it was supposedly that it's confusing what the tax payments, deferred tax payments and things are. No, the question is, call it something else than current assets. If the homeowner has fled the country and he's not going to pay his taxes, and you're not going to get it till the house is sold, it's not a current asset. A current asset is the checks in the mail, the invoice has been sent. Call it as a write-off. Call it something that accounting call it. And then when the money does come in 5 or 10 years later, call it as an unplanned tax income or something, but don't call it a current asset. That is what I've been asking for a year and a half, and it's never been addressed. And it seems like now what we're doing is just saying, well, we're not going to give it to you because it's too confusing. That's what I read out of this email. Anyway, I will vote no on this if I don't get a balance sheet, because I want to know what the current balance is. I want to know how much money last month, what changed on our account balances. I want to know where our positions are. And if you don't give it to us, I'm voting no. I'm not approving.
If I may, please, just for the record, there is no confusion in the department of the chief administrative officer and the finance. They're not confused. So I don't want anyone to misconstrue what's happening or anything. The chief administrative officer isn't confused by this fiscal reality or whatever the definition we use or GASB uses. So there's no confusion there. The confusion has been on the part of previous situations here that you and I have lived through over the last little while. CAO just came on in December. So there's no confusion in that regard. So I just want to set that straight. Again, I'm not a financier. I don't see the difficulty in it. Let's put it this way. The implication of not voting on this sheet of paper is implying that the chief administrative officer, the CL, that we're not providing you with enough to make that. Obviously, there's a problem with that because everything on the sheet could be approved because it is disconnected to certain sheet. So I have to mildly object to the idea that this cannot be approved without the other thing. Not to speak to whether you feel like you should or not, but it's that we've been in logic. I think it's too far. This sheet can be approved for what it says because it speaks about itself and it's contained within itself as opposed to another sheet. But anyway, that is a separate issue. I just want to make sure that right now we can move forward with an openness for for each other's trust that we're trying to arrive at the same place. And I can't turn to my CAO and ask them to call something that violates GASB or what they feel in their profession. It's just like I would do for myself. If someone wants to tell me, don't call it tech services, call it something else. I'm going to say, as a librarian, that's what we call it, right? don't call it the Dewey Decimal Classification, don't call it something else. I'm gonna call it what it should be called, and I would expect my CAO to do the same. So, but I think there's a great discussion to be had. I think it would be really good if we had it more one-on-one, two-on-one, whatever, 2-on-2, something like that, so that we can finally put it to rest and that you can get what you need to do your work, which is obviously predominantly the financial responsibilities. And so, again, I keep saying the same thing, so I apologize.
Trustee Addison?
I move to accept March 2026 financial statements.
It is a move to accept the March 2026 financial statements. Further discussion if necessary before we vote. Trustee Plus?
The motion is to approve the financial statement, and the financial statement is incomplete. You have a budget versus actual. It's not the financial statement. I do not know the balance of all of our accounts, and I don't know how it changed the last month. And I'm opposed to accepting it. And I will say that the original email that came out says, I wish to provide written clarification of financial concept that's caused confusion. Seems to be written about confusion, but if we're approving the financial statement, I am going to vote no, because this is just simply a balance sheet. It's not a balance sheet, it's an income statement.
Yep, the motion was amended to say that they approve the financial statements provided to the board. Is that acceptable for you? I'm not trying to push the issue, but no, okay, very good. Further discussion? Okay, it has been moved to approve the financial statements for the period ending on March 2026. All those in favor say aye.
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 No,
Those opposed?
No.
The ayes have it. The financial statements for March 2026 are approved. We are now on hold on. We're now for the Athol Community Annual Report. The tour included, and it will be AC Peter, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I confirm that before the meeting.
All right, welcome everyone to the Athol Library. There we have the picture, humble beginnings over there at the community center across the street. Found it going through some whole things, working on digitalizing it. Found an old invitation and the stuff I was going through. So the same building when we opened back in 1992. After we had the book brigade that moved everything across from City Hall to over here. And I mentioned that because I was actually talking to somebody like 2 weeks ago. They're like, oh yeah, I had to do community service over there like a really long time ago, like 1992. So here was that. So we offer a lot of the same services today as we used to. So fiction, nonfiction, large print, audio and video, just, we've evolved a little bit into, streaming and DVDs instead of cassettes. Had to throw in the picture up there of the old equipment. And so we have been through a few upgrades and remodels over the years, but yeah, the big one was about 1.5 years ago. I think we all remember that. So our library today, these are some of the services we offer today, but it's not inclusive. I'm sure I forgot many things. So I was doing the photocopying, scanning, lots of tech help, lots of Libby help, especially lots of phone help. Yeah, smartphones. Playways, the library thing is pretty popular, and the Wi-Fi computers. Trying to get more word out about Mango, the language database, things like that, and doing a lot of the requests in the ILL since we're not with the CIN anymore. So, but those are coming in steadily. Proctoring's another thing that a lot of people don't really know about. What's the printing? And our vision statement, obviously a little bit shorter than it used to be back in 1992, but still is the same thing. Just it's easier to remember. It's short. So a bit about the population around here. I think it's kind of a misconception. Like you drive into town and you see the population of 676, but that is just the city limits. So according to the decennial census, finally said it right, back in 2020. So the area code of 83801, the population is 7,501. But that still doesn't include populations like Bayview and Carywood and all of that. They also utilize our services, and also even non-members that still utilize our services like the printing and computers. So people with an Athol address, that's about 78% of our members, and elsewhere is about 22%. So this year, well, okay. So we have 2023, which is the blue, 2024 is the orange, which is the weird year, and then green is 2025. I went with the calendar year instead of fiscal year because of the months of closures. It just seemed the most accurate to compare those years because 2024 is just weird. So as you can see, between 2023 and 2025, down a little bit in the foot traffic that comes in, but pretty close. Same with the new members signed up, a little bit less than there was in 2023, but still pretty close. So with the circulation and the downloads and the usage, you can see that ebooks and audiobooks are about the same all the way around as well. You don't have to come up here. So, and then the physical items and the internet is obviously quite a bit lower than it was in 2023. But if you look at the statistics, I'm pretty confident that had to do with, well, the hours and everything. I think the change in hours was part of the problem. And then after the solution from CIN and everything, because if you look at the monthly stats, they significantly went down those last 2 months. That's a quarter of the stats right there. So I think that was probably a part of it. Hopefully that'll be coming back to normal now that working with purchasing. I can't remember. That will start having more physical items circulate now that we're getting some of those items back. And here we have, oh, I forgot my whole list. So I can remember things. So let's see. So public services at Athol. So some of what we really do, besides just check in and out lists. So we have Bree and Garrett, they're generally my front staff, the service staff up there. So we do a lot of readers advisory. Like we have one lady that comes in all the time. She reads so much, like we cannot keep up. Just trying to find new books for her all the time. And it's good that we all have different tastes because we can kind of add somebody else, like somebody's like, oh, I really want a mystery. And I'm like, I don't read that. So we all help each other out with that. And then things like kind of readers advisory, kind of not, but like there's a regular member that came in and the other day and she wanted an audiobook for her husband on CD. We didn't have an author that she wanted, so I was like, take this play away. And she's like, eh. But I finally talked her into it, and like her husband was super excited because it didn't skip at all, and he could walk around with it with his headphones. So, got a big fan of that. Been doing a lot of for information and reference. Printing out a lot of tax forms. People have been asking for a lot of housing grant information and stuff like that. Also, the manual, promoting that the language a lot lately. Resources. Always helping somebody with that. Recently, a woman came in that needed a bunch of forms printed out and signed, so she could become her father's full-time caregiver. So we got her a card, got her paperwork done, and now she comes in with her father and picks out books for him because he's developing dementia, and that keeps him his brain more active and everything. And also at that same time, we're also able to refer her to Allie, our adult programmer, had her memory caretakers plan too, so she was able to go to that class as well and learn some things from that. Also along with that, we had a woman come in recently. She had moved here to Spirit Lake from Montana, but on the way she got robbed. So she didn't have anything. Took a while, but we finally found it in her phone, some documents from the state with her address. We could get her a card. And so she was able to get on computers, get some stuff done, and also check out some things for her kids so they were entertained. And then there's other people that aren't members, like the traveling nurse that came in a few months back. Couldn't get her a card, but she was able to use computers and get books off of the friend's sale, keep her entertained. So, and then tech support and tech education. Like I said, I always Libby, especially for Libby. I think everybody knows about Libby by now. And always lots of shipping return labels. That's a big one. And then there was a lady that came in, she had to get it in that day, some documents scanned into her husband's workers' comp, or else they weren't qualified for it or whatever. So we got it all done for her in a couple hours and did not think that would happen. So it was good. I also do a lot of meeting and collection management. Right now I'm kind of working on filling in some gaps in nonfiction, updating the fiction section, and refreshing the inspirational section. Have a lot of partnerships that come in. Earlier this year, we had Foster Idaho set up a display. Put a lot of books out there, chipped them out from the other libraries, and a lot more of them went out than I thought there would be. Then we also have the Daughters of the American Revolution come out every year. I was partnering with City Hall, Farragut, and Super One for like trunk or treat and stuff. Then we have our early learning and awareness education, which Bethany does for youth programming. One of the things that is really popular is her music and movement, and I didn't really know what that was until she told me. I didn't realize that it promoted so many things like physical development, cognitive growth, social emotional skills, creativity, and brain development. So it's just one of the programs. And then we have adult enrichment and life skills. One of the ones that kind of came out good with that one was the probiotic class. We had a mother come in with her son, was having stomach problems, talking to Bethany, our youth programmer. A regular couple that always comes in overheard her and mentioned probiotics. And so the woman tried it until they helped her son out. And then so that led to them hosting a class here, which had a really good turnout. So, and then resumes and job searches, also always a huge one. That's a letter from one of our regular members that helped her get a job over there at the Dollar Tree. I know it says I applied for it too, but it's just like a side gig. I'm not going anywhere. So great getting her hired. And then last but not least, a lot of people just come in here to conversate and connect. They want to talk to us or other people. They sit down and the puzzle table or read the paper. A lot of the people are stay-at-home moms or widowers or full-time caregivers, so they just kind of like to come in and get out of the house. And then some of our community events. Farragut, of course, we do a lot of tours and history of the Brig, nature walks, a lot of nature walks and education about plants and trees and animal tracks in the summertime. There's a little picture of Athol days up there. Bethany requested the books from the Idaho Commission for Libraries, and so we handed those out. We were supposed to ride the book bikes in the parade, but that morning, I was like, I got it. So after about just going to the circle for 20 minutes in the parking lot, I finally ran into my car and I said, sorry, Bethany, we have to walk in the parade. So we're going to practice this year. And then we did trunk or treat at the Super One, Gryffindor and Hufflepuff, and then it looks like the T-Rex kid is going to bite my head off. We had well over 700 attendees there that time. It's hard to keep track because there were so many people. And once again, we had folks from the Idaho Commission for Libraries. But that setup we did this last year was not as good as the year before. The kids like to go through and pick out their books. Since they already had them pre-bagged, it was kind of, yeah. So we're going to go back to the old system next year. And then for outreach, Bethany does a lot of things at the Athol Elementary School and the Sunrise Daycare. So our adult programs, that's Allie, our adult programmer. She does lots of classes like the Wills and Estates and Press was a big one that actually packed out. I had to turn people away because the meeting room was past capacity. And there's always like crafts and paintings and painting class and whatnot. So there's a picture up in the top corner of the probiotic class. There's Bikini. She came down from Spirit Lake Library to teach crocheting, which is now turned into a recurring monthly thing. But now it's just stitching. So you can embroider, crochet, knit, whatever, and get pointers from everybody else in there. And then we have the Athol Baby Book Club, which has been here for 27 years. Cheryl is a snowbird. She's on the laptop. So she was one of the founders. So she's been part of it for 27 years. And then we have Jeannie, and she's been part of it for 23 years. And I think there's 14 active members in there right now. And they're always willing to accept new people. And then our youth programs, in the middle there, that's the Jinx entertaining guy. He travels all over the Pacific Northwest with his family and puts on these shows. It was pretty fun. That's his kid and the inflatable T-Rex. Lots of inflatable T-Rexes. And then just a picture of the kids table because recently, like the past 3 months, just been having families just come and hang out at that little table like for hours and visit. So, and then we have Bethany in the middle in the yellow. And then we have Alina from Spirit Lake and Kathy from Rathdrum. And that was at the New Year's Eve party. So that was a lot of fun with the kids and everything, their sock hop thing. And then I had to put a picture of Bethany every year. Does the Peeps diorama. It's one of my favorites. Like I take the Peeps and make little dioramas. That's James and the Giant Peep. I made that one last year. So a little spider and centipede and everything from there. So the future. So having been part of the strategic planning committee, I learned a lot of things going through those survey results. So that's one reason that I'm going to start really focusing on the fiction section or block comments saying that wasn't balanced or wasn't really what the people out here wanted. So looking into that with the collections to see if we can refresh that and get it updated. Going to be joining the chamber so we can better promote library service and better partnerships. So I'm going to start doing that probably this next week. And then might not be implemented for a while, but probably going to start doing that notary training that was also part of the strategic planning. Those are a few things that are in mind for right now. I'm sure there'll be more. So thank you. And any questions?
Trustee Plus, please.
So I noticed, they talked about the partnerships and you named off some of the partnerships, but just a general question. Who picks them to be a partner? Who approves, or people just walk up and say, I want to do this, or is this a repeat every year? Or and how do you pick your partners?
It depends. A lot of it's been going on for years, like the Athol days or the trunk or treat at Super One. That's been from Farragut. That's been going on for years. So if they have something, they might approach us or we might approach them. But that's already established. As far as someone new, sometimes I'll get an email about it. Or if I have a thought, I would approach someone, but I generally run it through upper management before it's like, oh, hey, we're partnering with this person. So, but if I have an idea, I would get permission and then go with it. If somebody emails me, I'm like, depending on who it is, I would go up or down. So.
Lisa, thanks for a very compressed high-speed presentation. Thank you. I have a question. Have we had adequate, or do you have adequate space for the number of programs that go on here, or for people that want to use facilities for meetings? Is it fairly balanced? Does it meet the needs?
It's hit and miss. Sometimes it's really hard to find the time in here, and then other times it doesn't get utilized. So it's really hard to predict that. But generally, at any individual program, so the adult programs are usually fine in here. But sometimes we have to expand the children's time, like story time, kind of into both rooms or out in that area out there because it will go over capacity for the meeting room. So.
Okay. Yeah, I saw something in the paper today about noise factor over here or something
he's
about.
in here all the time. Last time he was in here like 2 weeks. Well, he's in here actually like almost every day. But I gave him the calendar for the kids program. I don't know if he's.
When to stay away. Okay.
But yeah, he's all right.
Other questions, comments? We want Trustee Potts.
Like I really approve of these children's book reading sessions, and I don't know, you had a term for them, but story time, okay, because that seems like that improves literacy. They're probably kids that pick out books or check out books or something, but how do you reckon that with spending time with Farragut Park and nature walks? How does that help literacy? And I mean, it seems to me like that's a Parks and Recs area. Why is the library doing that? Does it really help literacy?
Yeah,
That's what I'm after.
Yes, and maybe I'm not as involved with these programs anymore since the kind of restructuring now that, you know, I don't really manage that as much anymore. But I see Bethany doing her work, and so the kids go there and then they come back, take books there, and they come back, check out books on like animal tracks, identifying animal tracks, so plants. When Bethany goes to Farragut, she does programs. I remember one of them last year was like, I can't remember what it's called, but like the ancient art of Japanese fish measuring. So like when they used to catch a fish, they would like dip it in paint and put it on a piece of paper. So I mean, kind of taught the kids that with the different kind of fish scales and everything. And then she was doing a lot of like art using the nature, like the dandelions and stuff like that. So and then you come back.
Thank you. No other questions? Thank you, Casey. Appreciate this
Okay.
presentation. And I guess we'll be talking. We do a tour as well, I guess, here.
We don't really do that. So, yeah, we don't really do a tour.
No,
We
okay.
do, yeah.
We do, okay. So I
Yeah.
guess we'll take a little miniature walkabout and go for a tour of the library. Okay, we'll resume our meeting. We didn't really break or finished our tour. And the big event of the day we all look forward to is the director's report. Item number 8 on the agenda.
Thank you. Actually, this will be quite brief. I'm going to yield some of my time to a response to public comment that I'll make later. And a lot of the updates that I think I've worked on for that meeting are actually agenda items. So the only update I have is the collection development update. So from the original first round of the 140 titles, I think last time I mentioned 37 were deemed harmful by the CLN librarians. That number is now up to 42. And 51 were deemed not harmful by the CLN librarians, and that number is up to 54. So we're still going through the material. The original 140 list was selected before the dissolution of the CIN. These lists are live, as it were, and accessible by patrons. Consequently, there's a bit of fluidity in the list. There remained approximately 50 titles from the original list. However, 14 titles are either not currently owned or lost. So approximately 30 titles remain still in this first round of review. So I know everyone is always eager to request my lists and see them. And the original 140 that was bandied about nationally and in other ways, I'm not binding myself to a list that I create internally for my collection development department to do the job. So I wouldn't take that list as 100% in stone. We find out that these items are lost, or we might have had them or not had them during the CIN time, and so they're on that list. But anyway, I'm going to report to you as accurately as possible what's actually happening. So as far as like I said, harmful, we're up to 42, not harmful, we're at 54. There still remains some left to do. And I'm also now working on a sort of a second round. See, it should go without saying, but it's obviously my responsibility and due diligence to evaluate the library collection at all times. That's my purpose in life. So I continue that. As all just internal evaluation, something that any healthy organization would do. Library does it with books, among other things. So as always, we're looking to comply with the Children's School and Library Protection Act. However, we will also be looking to serve our community's wishes as expressed through the Community Needs Assessment Survey, and of course through the officials that the community elected to govern the library. So this next round, I don't predict it will be as specific to violation of the law, but it's going to be more related to some of the requests that the communities asked for in our survey. So I'm working with the Technical Services Department on that. There is no official list at this time. There's no official list at this time, so I can't produce one. But my guess is we'll be looking at over 500-ish, 500 to 600-ish titles that need some level of assessment. Now in this first round of 140, again, roughly 140, we're reaching 35% of that is being designated as mature content. I don't expect that the second round will reach that. 35% of 600 is high. That's not what the second round is about. So for example, in the one of the things in the survey we got back from the community, there was like witchcraft and graphic violence, political ideology, those kinds of things. So we're just going to take those. I mean, they also mentioned sexual content, explicit stuff, which obviously falls under the law. So this next round is not necessarily tied directly to the law, but more to what the community is asking for us to look at in the collection of minors. So it's quite likely that the distinction in the next round will be, does it stay in the minor collection? Does it go into the general collection? Or does it go into a genre-fied collection? But I mean, there will be some obviously that hit the mature content, but I don't predict that's the main purpose of this next round. So yeah, that's all I really had prepared. Like I say, most of my updates and everything I've been working on over the last month is on this agenda. So if anyone has any questions,
Trustee Fox.
You had mentioned, I think, that the review of these 140 or 130 or whatever is being done by all the branch managers, or who's all involved in it?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, a lot of it has to do with expediting this process. Obviously, it's a little onerous for me to do on my own before a collection development person came on. And again, that's just one person. So in order to expedite it, because we'd like to get this finished, I requested that all the MLS holders. So because that's what a librarian is, a professional person with an MLS. So all the MLS holders in the organization took part. An MLS holder is not necessarily at the management level. I have an MLS holder who was a adult programmer at the time. So you could be anywhere in the organization and hold an MLS, but so MLS holders were distributed, 10 or so, books in a box. They all read it with a very simple request. Does it or does it not violate? Like, if it violates on a page, write down the page, right? And so they did that, and that's where we're getting those numbers from. Again, full transparency, the collection development manager and myself can and probably will still go through, right? We'll go through the 54, whatever that were deemed not. We'll go through the 30, 42 or so that were deemed, right? Just now with a deemed case, we just need to look at the law and whether, the whole as a whole, right? Or so we're just trying to expedite the process and mostly because we want to satisfy, I don't feel a reason to expedite from external pressures, from the public per se, but I felt the sense that the board would like to be able to fulfill their promise to the community that the minor collection was taken care of. So that's kind of why I expedited it that way. So.
10 going to, or a different 10 going to everybody and they're all just looking and they decide on those 10, or do those 10 then get rotated around to others?
No, so
you're not particularly.
we're randomizing the box, filled with the books in it. And again, the reason why an MLS is being asked to do it because it's a bibliographic expertise research project. It's like find the page, prove that the page is there, that the content is X, and move forward. I'm not asking the MLSs to chime in on as a whole or any of that. Right? The expectation is to just rapidly accomplish things that isn't normally what we would do. There are wonderful websites out there that do this kind of thing. And we obviously they provide a great resource, just like any review site does. But that just so you understand the nature of the distribution of the project was to expedite that first. Because if someone comes in and says, "Oh, this book has something in it, I can't act on that. I have to act on proof for the evidence that on page 42 this happens." So I gotta get eyes on that page, right? So I do trust my librarians to get eyes on that page, see that page, and then say yes or no, right? So that's where we're at with that. So
Okay.
I mean, again, it's I only feel pressure if the board puts pressure on me. Otherwise, it's an internal project. We'll be doing this for the rest of my time here. Every single day of the week is a day to evaluate the collection, move things around. That's what we do. So anyway, but I just want to clear that up. Yeah. So it's not the list again. The reason why, because I know the 140 list was like such this almost to the point of infamous. But it's not a concrete. I mean, if we go back to this and point out 10 of the items we don't even own anymore, right? For other reasons, like weeded out, lost, never returned. So, and they were always accessible to the public, so they circulate in and out. And so it's it's a living work and it takes time. Anyway, so that's.
Question for the director of government. On a regular basis, the board packet includes a collection report. Basically, it's an Excel report. And I know that we didn't have one for this month or last month. I was kind of curious what happened. Was that overlooked or was it behind schedule or something?
No, that was a internal decision. I'm not sure what the reason for it was to begin with. I find it, not peculiar, but I don't know whether a library board needs to see every book that is purchased in and out. I can understand how historically a board might have requested that. If you would still like me to do that, I can. But that, I think, speaks more to the relationship between the board and the director and that level of trust that one has, that one person will do their job, the other will do theirs. But again, I don't know what the motivation was for why the board either requested it or it was just provided to them. But to get a list of everything that's being purchased.
Yeah, the board was trying to monitor what was being brought in-house. And it is currently, though, still in a policy. So it's not just a verbal carry-on. It's actually, I was one offhand, I don't have it in front of me, but we do have a policy that says that a listing of all the purchases each month would be part of the board packet. Will be reported, so
Okay,
I can find it
don't know
going
which policy that is on.
offhand, it might be acquisitions, but I don't know which one it is, but I know for sure it's in there because I was the one that wrote it at the time. And it's still in there somewhere, so it's not to say it can't be modified down the line, but that is currently still in a policy. And I'll find it for you, you know, to help. I'll look for it.
If it's in a policy, I'll change my answer then.
Okay.
It's just delayed. It's been delayed.
Thank you, okay, and it doesn't mean it's unchangeable, you know, I don't want to revisit that policy in the future. We want to change it, but it is in the book somewhere there, so. Okay, anyone else have questions or comments regarding the library director report? Okay, very good. See what on next year. Okay, next up, number 9. Where is see? This one. Discussion, regarding a vacancy. I have a comment here. Let's see. Just wrote up a short note here. On Sunday, April 12th, Trustee Robinson informed the board via email that she would step down and resign from office with an effective date of yesterday, which was April 15th. In her resignation, she commended the board for its dedication and the members' strong views. And she also decided or let people know that she found it a pleasure learning something from each of the members here on the board and serving on the board for the last 5 years.
And the reason,
Given all that, she resigned.
the reason.
She resigned. So given the above, and in compliance with Idaho Code 33-2716, this vacancy shall be declared by the board within 30 days of the resignation. The board will now have 30 days from today to appoint a successor. So as I see it right now, the board's job is to identify prospective candidates and to make nominations for us to vote upon at a future date.
I think it's 60 days, not 30, but I'll.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Should I say, oh, sorry, if I said 30, it's 30, okay. We have to declare the vacancy within 30 days, which we're doing now. And then we have to fill the position if we can with a successor within 60 days of today. Sorry, maybe I misread myself. So that's where we are. It's just open for discussion if necessary. Otherwise, we're going to work on, I assume, looking for prospective candidates and making nominations at a future meeting. Or any questions, comments, anything else on this item? Very good. Hearing none, that completes that. Now move on to okay, job description revisions and eliminations. That's agenda item number 10. Beck, you want to run with that?
Yeah, sure. We could possibly just do the eliminations first, since that's pretty easy. They're not in the packet, we're just eliminating them. So there's these, which we brought for the assistant director position. The board wants to officially eliminate that. And then the other one is library supervisor 1. Because we have a library supervisor 1 and a library supervisor 2. The library supervisor 2 you do have in your packet, it's being revised. But the library supervisor 1 is just being discontinued. So if you want, we could start with that, I guess. And then there are 3 revisions and 2 eliminations.
If you don't mind, is a library supervisor 1 lower level and a 2, which is now branch manager, a higher level?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So make sure I understood that, okay. So does anyone disagree with the elimination to the 2 positions, I don't think? No, well, trustee Potts.
I'm a little confused on the supervisor 1. We just changed the name or what? What was that?
So there were,
I know you gave us a chart of the
Yeah.
organization, but I guess I don't know what it is that we're eliminating.
yeah, so library supervisor 1's, well, let's put it this way, library supervisors 2 were Post Falls and Hayden branch managers, the person in charge. So yeah, well, Casey in here, she was a library supervisor one, the smaller branches. The distinction between the two job descriptions was very limited. One, and you'll see it in here where the word large is taken out. In library supervisor one, it said small. So, 5 were library supervisor ones, 2 were library supervisor twos. The distinction in the past was simply the size of the building, it's the size of the library. So library supervisor one is being eliminated. And we're choosing to revise library supervisor two because it's more in keeping with the direction we're going. Right, which is raising the library supervisor up to sort of it's a name change. Predominantly a name change, branch manager. It has a few differences related to exempt status, which is the library supervisor one. So, but yeah, just so it's the 7, I like the term we're going with, it's the 7 branch managers.
Okay, if people want to look at the next particular job description, we reviewed all these ahead of time, so we're now looking at the branch manager job description, formerly called library supervisor 2. I saw no changes or no needs, so trustee Addison, please.
Yeah, I noticed on the other ones it was transferred over, but on this one, we find 103 and 104, which were marked out. The equivalent combination of experience and training provides the knowledge and abilities necessary to perform the work. Was not transferred down to the green. Line 120, was that on purpose or was that a?
Yes, yeah, it is on purpose. The direction is to have MLS holders in those positions.
Okay.
Trustee Bush?
Why is the, red 99, 100 to 104 basically being moved down lower? Is it just to change the sequence to standardizing?
Yeah, all the job descriptions have it in that order, so I was taking the opportunity to tighten it up a bit. And same with the whole last page. I mean, the red text is the same as the black text. But we're just trying to get everything. Librarians like to have everything properly structured and in the right place, so that's all we're doing there.
Other questions or comments regarding the branch manager position description? Very good. I assume we're approving that at the end. I'll ask for a vote if necessary. Now move on to trustee Plus.
Back on, beginning of line 716. So the branch managers, the 7 branch managers, according, this was on the org chart, you gave us report to the public service manager. So that's one manager that reports to you. So instead of having all 7 libraries report to you, you have a specialist that manages the branch managers.
That is correct.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, on finance specialist, formerly the business manager. Again, such stellar work done by the staff. I couldn't find anything wrong with it, so open to further. Okay, trustee Addison's okay with it as it is. You gentlemen okay?
Yep.
Yes. Trustee Foster, you still looking? Go ahead. You have a question?
Yeah, I'm just, it's my,
Uh-oh.
yeah, thing on, proper nouns. I don't know why 23, 20, end of 22 and 23, why we're capitalizing district policies and procedures. Just, it's not a official thing, but why we don't just say lowercase district policies and procedures, all lowercase, but I can see finance specialist, that's the name, beginning of line 22, but I think we're just using proper nouns again.
I thought the Capitol Police worked in Washington DC. Okay, well, I'm okay with it, with uppercase, but someone wants to change it. Open for discussion.
Either way.
I understand that. Leaving it, what, I'm fine with the way it is now. Maybe. Okay, anything else? Nothing else is noted?
Yes.
Trustee Fox, please.
So on, 77, we're specifically saying Sage Accounting and ISOL software. We really want to do that? Are you gonna revise the job description to come up with some other software? Why wouldn't you at least add and learn other software adopted by this district or something? Seems like you're binding your job description to Sage Accounting that might go out of business.
Yeah, I thought we made it generic in the past, some other job description, but yeah, do we want, that's a good question, because I just similar when I didn't mark it, but, if you get a different, would we just want to say the accepted, whatever, accounting software or the,
Districts.
I don't know. I'm sure, might have,
I mean, you certainly can. If this was 2014, then for about 10 something years, it was Peachtree. Right? If I have to bring this back to you in 5 years to change the two words from Sage and iSolved, I'm okay with that. We just invested in iSolved. I don't see us moving away from that. I can't speak to Sage as how standardized it is or how big it is, but I would guess that this is the software. These are the platforms we'll be using for the foreseeable future.
Why not just say software adopted, accounting software adopted by the district?
I guess this, besides helping the person do their job, this also acts as a way to hire people. So when they see the job description and the posting, we want them to know that it's Sage and iSolve before they even apply.
I guess I'm okay with it as is, but.
You consider revise it when you change this, that's okay.
All right, we'll wait for that change. All right, any other discussion or findings or issues regarding this position description, the finance specialist? Good, next one up is the, human resource specialist. This is faster than the evening one we had a few months ago. Trustee Allison, please.
So line 67 is protected classes and discriminatory principles. I'm assuming that that's according to law. If otherwise it sounds like DEI and some people are more equal than other people. But okay, I'm fine with that.
Well, I'm doing all right. Others with questions, comments on this one? Very good. No one has any further questions or issues on this item on the agenda? Yeah. Okay, entertain a motion to accept the job descriptions or approve them. We'll make a motion to approve the job descriptions. I can make one as a chair, as a small board. All those in favor of the job description changes discussed in line item number 10 in the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Very good, the ayes have it. And we have, next up is a break. Take a 10-minute break. It's now 26 after, so we resume again at 3:38. How's that? Let's get a little extra space there. 3:38, resume. I think I'll break until that time.
Yeah.
Okay, the meeting will resume and back in order. And the next item up on the agenda right now is trustee training, item number 12 on the agenda, please. And this, we're having council run us on this one.
Okay, sounds good. I was gonna present on the new developments in Idaho law and the ongoing case with the Ninth Circuit today. In this year's legislative session, the legislature introduced 3 separate bills, 2 of which in the House, 1 of which in the Senate. HO 796 and HO 819, and then the one that was just signed by the governor on April 13, Senate Bill 1448. This bill was primarily motivated to fix the deficiency in the Idaho statute using the context clause as the one issue. The court reversed the denial of a preliminary injunction in the case and remanded to the court. the Ninth Circuit Court held that the Idaho's use of the context clause in the law made it unpermissibly constitutionally overbroad, and that it didn't set objective guardrails on how the state or local government should apply the context clause. And it was essentially the issue that we've been communicating with the library for a couple of years now about where the state's ability to determine what is explicit or obscene for minors at a different age under 18 is going to be. And it's been held for a long time that states can determine what that line is, but there's been no cases since then that break it up into over 13, under 13. It's typically all been just considered as a class of minors. So Idaho attempted to create a law that would have a different standard of what harmful to minors is based upon the age. The way they did it by using in the context in which it was used was found to be unconstitutional by the Ninth Circuit. So they sent it back to the district court to figure out what type of an injunction the court would order, meaning what they would prohibit the state or the public libraries from doing as it regards applying that test. It didn't hold that any of the other issues with the statute were unconstitutional. The definitions of harmful to minors, although they included the word include multiple times, they found a reading that would render them constitutionally permissible. And so this portion of the case, which is an amended opinion of the Ninth Circuit, solely focused really on that the context clause. So I've provided you a copy of that amended opinion today, 116F 4th 1148, or if you're looking at it on the Ninth Circuit website, you would find it by 25-2491. A lot of the oral arguments are videotaped or recorded. You can go look it up, watch it, whatever you want. I've also downloaded the entire file. It's 584 pages from the Ninth Circuit. It costs $29 on Pacer, so anybody can go pull it. And I've printed out the portion of the case that were Raul Labrador's briefs, because the court mentioned in the case that they essentially changed their argument a little bit during oral argument, that the state kind of didn't emphasize their arguments related to what they're calling the variable obscenity test. And the court was kind of confused about that. I haven't watched it yet, but the court said, well, we're just going to rely on their briefs since we're not sure if they're abandoning the argument. So if you hear variable obscenity test or the context clause, that's what's at issue here. And what led to Senate Bill 1448 being passed and signed by the governor, which removes that term from our law. So I have that. You can easily pull it up on the website. I didn't print a copy for everyone, but it's a substantial rewrite of HB 710 in that it kind of changes up and moves things around and chops off piece of definitions and adds things in other places. But the key thing it changed is that they removed the in the context in which it's used requirement. And so I wanted to spend just a little bit of time with the board to walk through what this law means and what the implications on, our policies or our procedures would be, and then put this out there to decide if we want to do a review and go back and look at our policies and make sure we're complying with this court order. Because although maybe the law just got changed, the court order binds our activities as well. And so if that's kind of moving down the train, we want to be tracking that as well as whatever the state law says. So if you are looking in your packet, the piece that's critical and important for you to read, all the other stuff is fun for lawyers, but really what you want to read is page 12. And it's paragraph C. It's titled, Plaintiffs have made a sufficient showing that HB 710's context clause is likely overbroad. And those couple of pages right there really draw out what the district court's going to be looking at when it's fashioning some sort of preliminary injunction. And then whatever Judge Brailford does in light of the Ninth Circuit's opinion will also bind us as well. And then so we need to look at Judge Brailford's preliminary injunction ruling or order, and then also this new state law, condense those into a review of our policies. I'm not saying they need to change or they're constitutionally insufficient. I haven't gotten to that point to review it. I wanted to distill all this information as a way to prepare to maybe look at the policies again and just make sure we're compliant.
Where was the suggested start area on page 12?
Yeah, I would read from 12 to about halfway down through 14. That's the section specific to the context clause. The other stuff is why the other arguments didn't prevail, or why certain plaintiffs had standing, or why some of the claims got dismissed. But the really important thing here that could affect our library is, one, Ninth Circuit Court opinion with a preliminary injunction order coming soon, and then this rewrite that the Senate got passed and was just signed by Governor Little. A couple of things to note in here that the court points out is we had another case about minors being able to access porn and a prohibition that says you have to prove your age as a way to protect them from doing that in Texas, the Free Speech Coalition case. That came out while this was pending, so none of the parties got to write their briefs based upon that. One of the key holdings from that case, even though it's analogous to what we're doing and involves arguably more explicit activity that isn't as close to sort of the gray area that we deal with in some of the books, right? The court says plaintiffs here do not challenge that this portion of the law expressly requires reviewers to consider a work's serious value for minors, and pursuant to Free Speech Coalition, plaintiffs can no longer do so. So it was a question for a while, based upon case law at least, is whether the Miller test could sort of be extended for minors, right? And so that case never came up. The Ninth Circuit is saying now it's a frivolous argument. There's no way you could say that Miller test and then putting 4 minors on the end of it is valid. So where we're at now is you could take the Miller test and put 4 minors on there. And what we're arguing about is, can you say 4 minors of this age, right? Under 13 versus over 13. And that's what, this is going to be one of the courses that help determine that, unless we get circuit splits and then we wait for what the Supreme Court says. So it's kind of along the lines of what we've been predicting this entire time, that this whole dispute is going to revolve around what standard is going to be applied to what age. So we're almost there.
So the, I remember the name of it in Texas, the county,
Counter.
Yaddo County.
Bonham County, that was the 5th district, and they've already ruled and didn't, that was on what books the library could purchase. Now that might be appealed to the Supreme Court. This is 9th district, which is not really talking about what books you purchase. This is what to do. Am I right? This is what to do with books that you already have, or are they extending this to what you purchase?
Well, I see your point. However,
or
the Fifth Circuit, from my memory, I didn't review that one in prep for this, but my memory is recalling that the Fifth Circuit generally rejected that contention that acquisition and removal are different. And so it's like two sides of a coin, because they're saying states have more authority to purchase or not purchase books, but that was based more on a tax, a money type argument, not necessarily what's the limit of the constitutional issue here, receiving information, speech and things like that. And then there's also that issue of government speech tied up in that too.
That one did, yeah.
But nothing about the Fifth Circuit case in my reading ever purports to change what the constitutional minimum is as it relates to free speech and the First Amendment, right? And so they can't use an impermissible motive to not purchase a book. What that leads to is content and viewpoint-based discrimination that will fail every time and will be subject to strict scrutiny. So they're saying, absent an impermissible motivation to not purchase a book, you have a lot of discretion. And I think that could get misread easily. But that's been months. But I think they're rejecting that contention as it relates to the constitutional issue. Certainly you have discretion, but it doesn't change this constitutional analysis. So you couldn't say, if this court says, we're going to treat minors as a class, and then go, oh, well, I still think that is explicit for a 13-year-old, even the court says I can't, and for that reason, I'm not going to purchase it. If they could collect that information and have that evidence, the court would likely overturn that decision.
That's not the way I remembered the fifth court. I know it wasn't unanimous, but I thought it was majority that on the fifth district that for Long County that they said libraries can choose to purchase what they want. And they weren't required to do anything with the, the under 13, over 13, or I think it's a different kind of a case.
It is, but that's an expansive statement. Libraries can purchase what they want, and I agree with that proposition. But let's say a librarian said, I don't like women, so I'm not going to purchase any books by a women author. That's not going to survive because it will be overturned because of the constitutional principles that we're discussing in the Ninth Circuit case here as well. Does that make sense?
So does the Supreme Court have to rule on both of these and make a general, basically, does it come down? Because it seems like they're kind of contradictory a little bit.
Well, until the Supreme Court says something different, we have to do what the Ninth Circuit says.
Not the fifth. It's
Right.
fine. Yeah.
We can use the Fifth Circuit as predicting what the Supreme Court will say, but it doesn't bind us to what we have to do. So in terms of the authority that they give libraries generally and their acquisition policies, we can use that as guidance to the extent it doesn't conflict with the Ninth Circuit. But if the Ninth Circuit says we can't apply a standard for 12 years old, that's different from 14 years old, then we have to follow that. They haven't said that yet. They just said that the way Idaho tried to do it is way overbroad with no guardrails. Does that make sense? I haven't seen the Ninth Circuit foreclose the ability of a state to draw a line based upon age. They've said that the way we tried to do it doesn't allow an objective standard for a board to follow, which leads to too much discretion, which makes it more likely that you could violate someone's rights, especially with the threat of civil enforcement, right? And that chills speech. And so they're saying, whoa, let's think about this again. Also, another important thing, we could talk about this later, was the standard of review that the courts are playing with right now between these conflicting rights, because here we're still, talking about, let's say I think it's inappropriate for an 8-year-old, and whether you agree or disagree, you still have the issue of the 17-year-old that wants the book and the school or the library that wants to give them the book. And so the court's struggling with that, is how do we provide that book? How do we allow the school to provide a book for that other age group, despite this disagreement over whether it's appropriate for a younger child or not? So it's clear that there's a distinction on adults and minors as a class. And what we're doing right now is trying to figure out what are we going to do with the different classes of minors as we go about this. And I think one thing that this board did well was it decided that it's not going to remove books and put them in the harmful to minors spot if they're not truly harmful to minors as a class, because that would mean we would be taking books that a 17-year-old should get and then making them go get an adult to get them. And so we still have an issue with what are we going to do with the different age classes of the minors. And so I think putting them in sections is appropriate. If it's for that age group, do it, but it doesn't cause an additional barrier to go, show your ID and get into a secret room. And so I think the board's done a good job compromising on how it's dealing with the problem, but I think we're also going to get a lot more guidance moving forward. So the next step after you read those pages is to go look at you don't have to look at the current law and the new one. If you pull up that bill, it'll show you exactly what they add and what they strike out. I would read that and study that very carefully and try to go, why did they do that? Because it's based upon this case, right? And so another thing that we know for sure that we've gone back and forth with a little bit is that, can you have an or on the Miller test? And it's critically an and, right? So all three of those components have to be there with an and then you can say for minors on the edge of it. And now we're talking about for minors of what age? So I reiterate that, but I just want to make it clear kind of where we're at procedurally in this Ninth Circuit case and why we have this new Senate bill signed into law.
Did the new law do anything with those three words? Move it to adult access only location?
I don't think it touched that, did it?
Let me pull up the one that was signed into law. The court didn't have a problem with, the enforcement mechanism. No, I haven't read the whole 584 pages, but I don't think that was an issue really in the case. What the court had a problem with is that there's an enforcement mechanism there, but a constitutionally overbroad violative provision
For the age groups.
right, and so that threatens an chill speech. And so I don't think they were concerned that there could be this private right of action. They were certainly concerned that there could be when there's multiple groups of competing constitutional rights at issue. No, that section is amended slightly just to pull out all the superfluous definitions and put the more tight definitions in there, but the enforcement mechanism is still in the bill.
And it's 1448, Senate.
It's Senate Bill 1448. So that's good news, I think, because, you know, having a court order certainly helps me advise the library, regardless of if we agree or disagree. Hopefully we can get some clearer rules of the road to implement. And so what I would propose to the board based upon this, because it's a lot, I think we, council with library director, should get together, distill our policies, which predate all of this. I mean, this case was kind of starting to go through while we just had drafted and implemented our policies. Let's distill that through and then maybe come up with a proposed amendment or something like that. The board is obviously free to do that, but I think it would be very, very well to spend our time to do that, just in case we miss something. Now that we have this, we've learned, we can craft it better. And I certainly wouldn't want to have an excuse of, well, we got a new Ninth Circuit case and we got a new law and we didn't even revisit our policy if there's something in there that we need to change. So I would like to be proactive with that and put that on the calendar if we can.
Yeah.
I think that's enough for now, unless you guys have any more questions.
Nope.
The only other thing I'll say on trustee training is that there was a recent bill that went through as well on the Open Meetings Act, and it specifically states that you can't prohibit citizens that attend from recording, and then it bases that on the disruption problem we talked about. So as long as there's not a disruption, people can record audio, video, take pictures. So, and that'll conclude trustee training. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, council. Move on to agenda item number 13, Family Values Month resolution. Just made a few notes here. A detailed 2.5-page Community Library Network Family Values Month resolution was included with this month's board packet. In the interest of time management, I will not verbally recite the entire resolution here. If someone has a strong desire to do so, feel free. So suffice to say that in 2025, the legislature of the state of Idaho approved a traditional Family Values Month resolution. In support of this, the Community Library Network hereby also recognizes the period from Mother's Day through Father's Day to recognize the cohesiveness, peace, tranquility, and civility in communities built upon strong family values. And we encourage each CLN library to celebrate Traditional Family Values Month. Is there further discussion? Anyone else want to discuss this? Trustee Austin.
Yeah, I had some notes. So the vast majority of this is word for word from the Senate resolution. Figure that they probably have a pretty good handle on the proper legalese to use. the Idaho Constitution preamble that says, "We the people of the state of Idaho, grateful to Almighty God for our freedom to secure its blessings and promote our common welfare, do establish this Constitution. Furthermore, all 50 U.S. state constitutions contain some reference to God or the divine, though the word varies. And I'm just having a hard time fathoming anyone being against a mother and a father being married to each other and raising their kids. And this merely encourages a celebration. It's not dictating materials or anything else. Let's see, on the bottom of the second page, it says recognizes the values of traditional family consisting of a natural female mother and male father, children, aunts, uncles, grandparents, and other extended family. I would like to say that any member of any minority group can be celebrated under those headings, at least one of the categories. So it is very inclusive. And yep, I guess that's all I had.
Trustee Plus.
I had a couple of grammatical things. I think the very first line, be it resolved that CLN Board of Trustees, we need to spell it out. Community Library Network, we can put parentheses CLN, so later we can use CLN, but I think it should say Community Library Network Board of Trustees. And on the bottom of the second page, therefore, be it resolved that CLN, if you use that, with parentheses CLN, you can use CLN there, but I think it should say the CLN Board of Trustees. I don't think we can pass this, say that CLN does this, we can pass it as the Board of Trustees, but I guess I'm not sure. But I'd like to see it be resolved that the CLN Board of Trustees. Those are my two grammatical things, and then I've got what I feel was a big weakness or oversight. Bottom of the first page, it talks about the boards. They just say 1950, 27% of marriages ended in divorce. Today, 45% do. And divorce is no longer talked about. What I'd like to do is, I'm going to pass this on. This was a article last fall from, or last year from Idaho Times. It's in the family group where he gave some numbers, but divorce is not good for children is the name of the article. But the second paragraph on this Timothy Beaudelaine, I'd like to add in underneath that whereas 27% of the marriages end in divorce, I'd like to put some meat in there on why that's bad and add basically what I highlighted in the pink there. Whereas 90% of children from divorced homes suffer an acute sense of shock when their parents separate, with 50% feeling rejected and abandoned. Then coming to an and. So I want to add that in because I want to show why divorce is bad. This resolution doesn't even explain anything about why divorce is bad. So that's a change I'd like to make.
All right, I'll come back to those suggestions. Other comments? No.
I'm just going to respond to what you said.
Yes, go ahead.
So I'm good with changing it, be it resolved by the Community Library Network, and in parentheses CLN on page 1. And the second suggestion that Trustee Boss had, the CLN Board of Trustees, that's probably a good idea. And the third one, including this other thing, I thought that the closer it was to the Senate resolution, the more legally defensible or whatever it would be. So, I mean, other than just changing it to make it conform to being from the library or from the Board of Trustees rather than from the legislature.
I can throw it through changes in other just now. Meeting on the very first page, be it resolved that the Community Library Network Board of Trustees, I was that one, and also page 2, therefore be it resolved that, and then CLN Board of Trustees. Is anyone opposed to those 2 changes? No, okay. I'm concerned as well, just as Trustee Addison, verbalize their, adding new things. I'm sure this is beaten around in the legislature and it's out. I'll consider it legal. I'm not saying I want to support divorces in any fashion here, but, I just feel like we're entering dangerous territory by trying to add things in that they didn't put in, because I'm sure they must have taken these things into consideration in designing the resolution. That's my initial spin on it, without having processed the exact wording that you're proposing. Trustee Potts.
Yeah, and I only do it because I think it was an oversight. I don't know why somebody didn't say, you know, it's nice that you put that in, but what's wrong with divorce? This article is actually written. What's was it result of Winbury or somebody saying that, you know, you should just do what makes you feel good or do what makes you, down at the bottom of the second page. Grant Bailey Institute of Family Study, recent article promoting divorce. It's a healthy option. Divorce can be a radical self-love. Women are divorcing, finally finding happiness. Evidently, the authors of these pieces did not ask children of these parents now experiencing radical self-love whether they are finding happiness that their parents supposedly are. There's a push in society to go ahead and do it if it you know, cut somebody out if it makes you you know, makes you feel better. And that's why this article was written, saying that it's very bad on children or children. I think it was an oversight. So all I want to do is just use the wording that actually James Dobson 30 years ago used and focus on the family. 90% of the children from divorced homes suffer from an acute sense of shock when their parents separated. 50% feeling rejected and abandoned.
But is it sort of covered in a, let's say, a positive fashion on the bottom of page 2, where it just says it recognizes the value of the traditional family consisting of so-and-so, without going into whether a person's divorced or a family is divorced? I don't know. I am concerned about going into always legal jeopardy of sorts, always, and because
The only place traditional family is even defined that I can see is at the very bottom of page 2, be it resolved.
Yeah.
That a traditional family consisting of I find this wording awkward, consisting of the natural female and mother, children, aunts, uncles, they can extend it. I think there should be a comment or something in there, but it should be, I would like to say, or instead of the, and, or a natural family mother, but I would actually like to say an undivorced natural family mother and father, because you can, this definition, a divorced family can say they're a natural family. They got a mother and father, and we got aunts and uncles, and I think their definition needs to say consisting of an undivorced natural female mother and father with children, aunts, and uncles. It's got a comma there, like the natural applies to children, aunts, uncles, and I find that odd.
So I'm not opposed to your wording there, the 90% of children from divorced homes. I just didn't want to tinker with what the Senate wrote. I figure the more we tinker with it, the less defensible it is.
But they don't define traditional family. Except for that number 2, that's kind of not a very good wording.
yeah.
Actually, at the top, under be it resolved by the CLN or Community Library Network Trustees does say whereas traditional families designed by God, which most people can figure that out.
Is there any further discussion, questions?
I have one comment on it.
Council?
When it first came to me, the draft had almost a directive in it. And then Martin and I discussed it and we were thinking, soften that language to have, we encourage. The very last line on it in 11 that says, we encourage each CLN library to celebrate Traditional Family Values Month. The more I thought about it, the less it really felt like it was in line sort of with First Amendment principles, including the Establishment Clause. So to the extent that it's a directive, I think that it could be a little bit more risky to the library. So the proclamation by itself, it could be just speech, but to the extent that it's a basis for curation decisions or a rule for program approval or a standard to access meeting rooms or displays, it could also provide evidence of viewpoint-based discrimination. And so I really think that you can pass whatever resolution you want, really, I don't care, as long as that doesn't become a procedure for how we interact with the public. And so I would be a lot more comfortable if the encouragement line was out, because I don't want someone who has a different viewpoint in one of the libraries to feel like they have to pick between two different displays because of the resolution, right? Because of the viewpoint expressed in the resolution. So that would be my guidance on it. It's don't direct it, don't encourage it. You're encouraging it by making the resolution, but it can't become a policy or a rule to make that decision down the line. That'd be my advice.
So encouraging is expecting some kind of an outcome from staff?
Well, I'm a cop, I pull you over, I got a gun, and I say, I encourage you not to, it's one of those things that can be perceived by the elected trustees who pay the salary of the guy who makes the decision. And now he sees a resolution that says each of the branches are encouraged to do this, and there's not another one that counteracts the viewpoint. That's the argument where it'll be taken out of context.
Trustee Allison?
So if it said, we encourage each CLN library to consider celebrating Traditional Family Values Month, I mean, because it's just encouraging a thought process. It's not, would that's better?
What viewpoint-based discrimination is, though, is encouraging a thought process that's different from somebody else's thought process. So if somebody was going to build a case against the library because they were, allegedly discriminating against homosexuals or non-Christians or people who just don't like traditional marriages, and then they have a resolution and the resolution makes the other libraries operate with that same viewpoint, then the people who work at the libraries could have their rights violated, and then it could subject the library to potential litigation. And I just like to stay as far away from that gray area and that line as we can. And if it is a directive to a library, if they have to choose between one or the other, that's where we have the issue. I think the board can make the proclamation, but
Class?
Well, I find number 11 on the very end inconsistent. There, it starts off for the listing of members, therefore be it resolved that the CLN Board of Directors supports, recognizes, and 11 isn't a verb, it just says all benefit from cohesive. How about, that should be part of the Board of Trustees, recognizes, how about just saying instead of all benefits, supports cohesiveness, peace, tranquility built on family values, and then strike the last sentence. Because I think this is a resolution that only the board can do. We're not making a policy. We're just making a resolution from the Board of Directors. So we support the cohesive peace, tranquility, civility of communities built on traditional family values. I don't get all benefits from it. It doesn't fit in with the city plan.
Council see any issues with that recommendation there?
Sorry, we were looking at
That's quite right.
Coeur d'Alene cities and comparing it and comparing the state legislature's language, because Coeur d'Alene has a traditional values month and they encourage community schools, churches, businesses to celebrate traditional values month to promote cohesiveness, peace, and civility. You know, I don't see in there as we are encouraging our employees or our departments, right? And so what was Plath suggesting?
On number 11,
I think dropping the last sentence.
that all benefit from doesn't fit in the verb that recognizes or supports. I would say strike the all benefit from and replace it with supports the cohesion of tranquility, civility of communities built on strong traditional families, and then strike the last sentence. So this is just the board speaking on behalf of ourselves.
Yeah, that's kind of a grammatical thing. I'm not opposed to that. The closer we get to telling an employee, this is how you're gonna think to make a decision at the library, the closer we get to, we could get challenged for that.
That's why I was striking the last sentence.
Okay, so if we leave it, trustee Plot, Hodgson.
I was just gonna say, I'm good with the trustee Plaza's suggestion for all of number 11.
So 11 will be supports the cohesiveness piece and continue right there. And drop the word all benefits from,
And drop the last sentence.
and drop the, yes.
Yep.
Rooms open, okay. Keeping my notes correct and accurately here so far, we just made the one change on page 2, therefore resolved, we put Board of Trustees. But now, and we did some other thing, but there were two places that was. There's, on bottom page 2, Board of Trustees.
Yeah, and on page 1, we resolved.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, yes, on top of page 1, be resolved at the community library network. And then on the last page, the last paragraph 11, supports the cohesiveness, peace and so forth, and drop the last sentence. Further discussions, questions on this?
Still back on the bottom of page 2. At the very least, it seems like we need this consisting of the natural female mother and father, children, aunts, uncles. We need something to separate children, aunts, and uncles, because we're not talking about natural children, aunts, and uncles. It should be natural female and mother and male with children, aunts, and uncles, and other extended family. Something like that instead of just a comma, because it seems like the natural is applying to everything behind it.
I'm okay with it the way it is, and that made the legislature happy. I'm thrilled as well. But if anyone else disagrees or agrees with trustee philosophy, then change it. If the comment kind of speaks for itself, I don't know.
Yes.
I guess that one's not fine. All right, and then are we going to drop the discussion on it, on divorce?
I'd like to keep it.
I don't want to play with it personally, but I understand where you're coming from. I just want to get this thing done. It speaks for itself. It's been beating it out down south, but I'm open to other discussion. I understand. Okay, so people understand. Trustee Plus would like to have verbiage in there regarding damages and so forth of divorce. Does anyone want to include that? And if you do, how would you like to propose it be written? Trustee Addison.
I move that we accept the Family Values Month resolution as agreed to, edited.
As amended?
Yeah, as amended, thank you.
I learned that from you. So it has been moved to approve the Traditional Family Values Month resolution as amended. Further discussion? If not, it has been moved to, trustee Plus, please.
So I can bring it up again during discussion.
Yes, well, discussion, yes.
Adding force, but if there's no support about adding another whereas underneath, whereas 90% of children from divorced homes suffer an acute sense of shock when they separate, with 50% feeling rejected and abandoned, well, semicolon and. But I just want to beef up white force. I think that was an oversight. If no one wants it,
I'm not talking on right now. No, no one else. Okay. So is it further discussion? Not, okay, it has been moved to approve the Traditional Family Values Month resolution as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. The ayes, the other two. The ayes have it, unanimous. The resolution is approved. Did you get all the changes they made? What, weren't many? Okay, thank you. Okay, that moves us on to here. Response to public comment, item number 14 on the agenda. Hey, the director.
All right, this was originally an email I sent to my staff because I felt that the letter written in the CDA press warranted at least my addressing my staff about it, but I'll read it here just for the benefit of everyone watching this and who will watch it. In the March 25th edition of the Coeur d'Alene Press, there was a letter to the editor in the Reader's Right column from Gene Richardson accusing the trustees of fiscal dishonesty. To assure everyone that Richardson's claims are false and misleading. The first half of Richardson's letter refers to activities before my time as the director. Richardson concludes the first half of her letter by stating that, quote, it appeared Ploss and Hanley were keeping their promise, close quote, to refuse a tax increase. The second half of Richardson's letter acts as a counterpoint, positing a supposed broken promise. She begins with an erroneous statement, quote, but in the 2026 fiscal year, the board took the 3% increase after all. Close quote. The board did not take the 3% increase. In fact, the board voted for only a 2% increase. Richardson disparages the board's fiscal integrity by conflating actions taken at the time of approving the 2026 budget with events that took place much later, well into the fiscal year. Richardson misleads the reader by suggesting that my renegotiated contract in the second quarter of the fiscal year of 2026 has some relation to the merit and COLA increases that staff all received at the beginning of the fiscal year. Richardson also incorrectly states that the 2026 increase for staff was 2%, when in fact it was 4.5%. The increase in my salary has no relation to the annual staff increases. There were changes to personnel reflected in the new organizational chart that I distributed to my staff on February 17, 2026. These changes resulted in the reallocation of budgeted funds within the salary line. Approximately 53% of these reallocated funds went to the creation of the new public services manager position. 25% of these reallocated funds went to modified positions, and 22% of these reallocated funds were a part of my renegotiated contract. Richardson asked if all staff salaries are competitive within the market. I am confident that CLN is achieving this goal for all staff. Richardson concludes her letter with criticism of the decision to lease a district office. The decision to lease a district office was directly related to improving library services by increasing CLN's space by 4,000 square feet, the equivalent of one of our smaller branches. Richardson erroneously states that funding for the lease was approved by the board in December 2025. In fact, the lease was part of the 2026 fiscal year budget approved in August of 2025. Richardson is misleading her readers by stating, quote, after years of cuts, layoffs, and reduced services, that's nearly $160,000 in new spending, close quote. Everything that Richardson attempts to use to support her derision of the trustees is inaccurate. The reality is that there has been $0 in new spending since the approval of the 2026 budget. The reallocation of available salary funds and the properly approved funding of a district office intended to create a better CLN for the taxpayer cannot be even remotely construed as new spending. In her letter, Richardson is accusing the trustees of fiscal dishonesty and some unstated ulterior motive apart from serving the taxpayer. As the director of the CLN, I can assure everyone that nothing could be further from the truth. The board's commitment to fiscal responsibility and prioritizing the library district's taxpayers is inviolable.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Director. Does anyone else have a response to public comment? Very good. Don't. Next item is discussion of future agenda requests. I have one here, I guess. Next agenda, we'll have to talk about and work around the vacancy being filled with some nominations. So we haven't worked out the mechanics of how we want to do that yet, but I think that'll be definitely needed for another agenda in the future. Other discussions, Trustee Bless, sorry.
I don't know that one-on-one meeting with me with the director is going to resolve this need for balance sheet, but I think we need to have a discussion and set expectations over on what we want to be able to do the financial review. I think we need to, I guess you can leave it until we try it, but I don't see how we, one trustee, can make any way with any decision unless we have this as a agenda item and vote on it.
Okay, made a note of that. Thank you. Trustee Anderson?
I would rather wait until we have that discussion and then see if you still think that something more is warranted. So, kind of wondering, if legal counsel, if we have time to bring back one of the items, which is the one that, Chair Hanley said, discussion decision regarding a declaration of vacancy, figuring out how we want to go about that. Can we bring back an item on the same agenda?
That's one of the same things.
I mean, it's not clear. I'm not aware of a case that explicitly prohibits it, but if a member of here's how the case would go. A member of the public said, I looked at your agenda, I wanted to make a comment on that. I came for that, and then I left, and then you brought it back for something. I don't know. It's not best practice to do that.
Okay.
But I couldn't say that it's explicitly unlawful. But I certainly wouldn't want open meeting violation to infect the nomination process, because then the county commissioners get to choose. I mean, I don't know if you want them or don't want them to choose, but you know, they would be an interested party that would likely have standing to challenge the process.
We don't have the mechanics out, so.
I certainly think you can discuss why you want to have another meeting based upon your concerns related to the nomination process or whatever, right? You have a big sphere to say, a special meeting date or whatever, future agenda request. Here's so much time I need it. This is what date I need it, and here's why.
Okay, because I was going to say, I think we definitely need to discuss it as an action item at the next meeting, if not sooner, and discuss how we want to go about making our decision based upon assuming we have nominations or submitted to us or that we actually put together. And then, if necessary, we wouldn't have time for 2 regular meetings before we make that decision, though, because the 60 days would have elapsed. So we have our next meeting, and then if we need to, we could make a special meeting to do a vote if necessary.
Is it required in less than 60 days or?
We need to appoint someone within 60 days of the date that the vacancy has been announced, and we call it or declared.
So we've got 2 more meetings.
We have 60 days, and 60 days from now is before the June meeting.
Why don't you say what you were thinking, trustee Austin?
Well, just like what date we wanted applications by, not required, but preferred. And asking staff to put out a press release, calling for applications.
Okay, Director.
If my memory serves correctly, that's what we did last time. The last time you gave me a date. We, marketing, communications, we decided how we would post it. It was, I think it was directed to me. I think it was my email address that was used. We can go back and check, but, yeah, so we've already done this before, so you just need to give me the date that you want to receive, the closing, it's like a job application, the closing date, for the interested parties. Then give you enough time to review it. Yeah, so we've done it before, so prepared to do this now.
Maybe like one day before the next
That's what I'm
meeting.
wondering, in our next meeting.
Or preferred, because if we don't end up having any applications that anyone wants to nominate, then it would continue on.
Yeah, well, our next regular meeting is on the 21st of May. So would it be good?
June 18th is more than 60 days from today.
Right.
Yeah, that's correct.
Problem.
Yeah, calculated ahead of
Have to
time.
be May
Yeah.
or a special meeting.
So,
June 15, I think, is 60 days from today.
and the next meeting in June is the 18th for regular meeting. So,
So maybe we shouldn't announce it until the end of this week.
It's been announced in this meeting.
Yeah, it's.
Has it really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Resend that and
No.
tell them to announce it.
no, it's official. It's
Well, you could
it's
do
been
that.
declared, yeah, because we require, well, because we have 30,
30 days.
well, then otherwise we'd have to have a special meeting just to declare the vacancy, because 30 days from yesterday, I think
Yeah.
happens before the next meeting.
Okay.
So,
I
yeah, I
told her.
no, I understand, yeah. So, all right, well, I would feel comfortable if we're talking about maybe having nominations submitted a couple of days before the next regular meeting.
Gonna have to do those.
I guess applications,
Yeah.
yeah, applications submitted to the director,
Yes.
Yep.
okay. By the, I want to say the
18th of May?
18th,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think so.
Monday.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Preferably.
When's the next meeting?
next meeting is on
21st,
21st, so,
3 days.
yeah, 3 days in advance, right? Then maybe at that meeting, I guess, then we have to decide how we want to go about the process of voting, because we had a formula last time. I think you put that together, indicated. All right,
And then you can extend the deadline and call a special meeting if it doesn't get resolved.
Yep.
In May.
yeah. Anything else,
Do we
guys?
just have to start it within 60 days or do we have to finalize it?
We'll
within
appoint
60 days?
someone within 60
Yeah.
You
days.
have 30 days to declare and 60 days from the declaration to fill the vacancy.
Finalize
And
it.
if that doesn't happen, the county commissioners do it.
With the-
Three of them. Okay, anything else? Okay, well then our next regular meeting is for May 21st, 2026 at Spirit Lake at 2 p.m. And now we will move on to agenda item number, I'm sorry, hearing date, the budget hearing date. We should discuss when we want that. I think it's in August. Yeah, all right, I guess
That's way too early to.
This is the date that we have to set the
Yeah.
budget hearing date. Last year was August 15th, I think, so it's typically, a little bit before the
For the
regular
meeting,
meeting.
yeah.
It's usually
Like the week before.
It's usually the week before.
So we're supposed to identify the hearing date
Yes.
here?
Yes.
Okay. So
So what way do we have to do it so soon? This is to give
Needs to
the
be
public.
They need to publish it with the rest of the county or something. Oh, please, nobody objects? Okay, very good.
We have to publish and have the date before the end of April, so we are bound by that.
So should we just do the week
Just the
before, like we did last year, the week before, which would be
Okay,
the
so
13th?
13th.
Yeah, Thursday the 13th. Free.
What was the proposed date?
Thursday the 13th of August.
Oh, August.
So it's Thursday.
It's a Thursday.
The week before.
I have nothing on that date yet.
Now you do.
Anyone disagree with that? No? Okay, very good. The hearing date will be the 13th of August.
And it will be a PM meeting, right? And
We
evening
got
meeting,
the 6
right?
o'clock,
Yeah.
is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why can't we have it later?
In the evening?
No. I mean, this is always a problem, getting the budget finalized, but yet we have to do it early enough to get it for this meeting. Why can't I thought we could have the meeting. What's the deadline of when we have to have the meeting? I thought it was the end of August. Why are we doing it 2 weeks earlier?
Then we can approve it the next week at a regular
Next week, we got a
meeting.
regular meeting.
Budget hearing is just us listening to
To
what the
the,
public.
yeah, we just listen to the comments of the public.
So essentially,
You can still approve it.
we advertise and solicit to the public to come and tell us what you think about the budget. And then the next week, we take that into consideration, either approve it or amend. That's my understanding of how the budget would work.
Yeah.
But don't we have more
Need to be
time?
by the end of April so they can put it on your property tax statements.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes.
But don't we have more time to do the final approval? I thought we had another month after August.
Yeah, it's early September, so, and I don't think we'll have another meeting for that, so.
We'll probably finish the budget in May.
First draft, those. Well,
You have said
you're
that
pushing us,
before.
somebody's pushing us to do it that early.
I guess, well, if we need two special meetings, then before that, I don't know what the county latest date is. I don't know. That's what you're asking.
That's what I'd like to find out instead of just deciding to do this.
I can find out officially the exact date. I don't have it off the top of my head. I believe, it is in that first week of September that the L2. So it will not be prior to your September board meeting, so you would have to have it in August, yes.
Unless they had a special.
Unless you have a special
Yeah.
meeting, correct?
I'd like to just get it nailed down now.
Yeah.
And
You don't want to.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Tuesday,
Do you have a date conflict?
13th is bad for you?
I just want more time. If we want to have another special meeting for the budget,
Well, we
why
have,
don't you just have the budget hearing on the 18th on Tuesday? Just a couple days before our other meeting.
we may have a need to discuss our thoughts or the impact, I guess, what the public gave us
Yeah.
in time to digest it, maybe call for another special meeting,
Yeah.
I would assume. Make it so close, it's almost as if, well, thanks for what you had to say, we don't care, we're gonna go ahead and approve the budget. I mean,
Right.
I think we want to listen to what they have to say.
And
Go
we're
on.
used to thinking of Thursdays
Yeah.
being library days.
Yeah.
Rest of our lives, okay. Okay, did we resolve with that? We have identified the date, 13th of August for the hearing? Okay.
Okay.
Anything else on this item? Okay, hearing no further discussion, we'll then go into executive session. I'll leave off the, I guess somebody needs to make a motion normally, right? You're good at that.
I move on to executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 742061B and F.
It's been moved to the executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-2061B and F. This is a roll call vote. All those in favor, starting with trustee Plus.
Aye.
Hanley, aye.
Addison side.
Bauman, aye.
Very good. The ayes have it, majority. So we're now in executive session. I have executive session. And I believe we're now to the last item. So want to entertain a motion to adjourn?
Um,
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed my step, I'm sorry about that, yeah. So, yeah, we'll make a vote here. So vote then, all those in favor of, authorizing the chair and council to proceed as directed. We have a motion on it. Okay, I'd entertain a motion to authorize the chair and council to proceed as directed.
so moved.
So moved, it has been moved to authorize the chair and council to proceed as directed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. And entertain, one question, please go. And entertain a motion now to adjourn. It's your big one.
I move to adjourn.
It's been moved to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Our meeting is adjourned.